Somewhere between a private jet and a courtroom, the story of Offset's money stopped making sense to the people who thought they understood it. One year, the headlines were about platinum chains, custom Rolls Royces, and a stack of hits that made him one of the most bankable names to ever come out of Atlanta. The next, the headlines were about lawsuits, unpaid casino markers, a divorce filing, and questions nobody expected to be asking about a man once estimated to be worth tens of millions of dollars. This is not a story about a single bad night at the tables or one reckless purchase. This is a story about how an empire built on streaming numbers, touring revenue, and luxury branding can quietly hemorrhage money in 100 different directions until the math simply stops working. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how someone who once lived like he was untouchable ended up surrounded by financial pressure from every angle. Gambling debt, divorce costs, catalog buybacks, tax obligations, and the kind of overhead that most fans never think about when they see a celebrity flexing on Instagram. We are not here to repeat internet rumors as fact. We are here to walk through what was actually reported, what was actually filed in court, and what Offset himself has said in his own words. So let's start from the beginning, because to understand how someone loses a fortune, you first have to understand how they built one. Yo, what's good, fam? Now, before we get into this wild ride, let's set the scene properly, because the street's been talking about Offset's money for a minute now. But most of y'all only know the headlines, not the whole timeline. Kiari Kendrell Cephas, that's Offset's real name, was born December 14th, 1991, in Lawrenceville, Georgia, a suburb just northeast of Atlanta in Gwinnett County. Real talk, his come up wasn't easy. He grew up bouncing between family members after his mother passed away from cancer when he was a teenager, and he was largely raised by his grandmother and other relatives in the Atlanta area. It was in that environment, surrounded by extended family, that he formed a tight bond with his cousin Quavius Marshall, known to the world as Kovo, and another relative, Kershnik Karibal, known as Takeoff. These three were basically raised like brothers fam, and that closeness is part of what made their eventual group feel less like a business arrangement and more like family translated into music. Around 2008 and 2009, the trio began recording together under the name Polo Club before settling on the name Migos. They wasn't signed to a major label overnight either. They built their sound in Gwinnett County, recording mixtapes, developing the triplet flow that would eventually influence an entire generation of rap delivery, grinding through the regional mixtape circuit that defined how Atlanta artists broke through in the early 2010s. But here's where it gets real. The turning point came in 2013 with the release of the single Versace. That song, built around a hypnotic, repetitive flow and a beat that practically demanded a remix, caught fire locally before Drake hopped on the remix and helped push it into the mainstream conversation. That moment mattered because it was the first time Migos' specific rhythmic style, that triplet cadence that would later get imitated by artists across the whole genre, reached a national audience. From there, the group signed with Quality Control Music, an Atlanta-based label and management company founded by Pierre P. Thomas and Kevin Coach K. Lee, which had a partnership with the major label 300 Entertainment, itself affiliated with Atlantic Records. Now, this structure matters more than y'all might think, because it meant Offset's career was tied not just to his own output, but to a label ecosystem that handled distribution, marketing, and eventually the kind of catalog ownership questions that would resurface years later and cost him millions, but we'll get to that. Migos released their debut studio album, Young Rich Nation, in 2015, but the real commercial explosion came with Culture in January 2017. That album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, driven by the massive single Bad and Bougie featuring Lil Uzi Vert, which itself hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in January 2017, partly fueled by a viral Donald Glover shoutout during his Golden Globes acceptance speech. Culture eventually went multi-platinum, and the streaming numbers behind it were straight ridiculous for that era. Hundreds of millions of streams piling up fast as the album became one of the defining hip-hop projects of the year. The momentum kept rolling with Culture 2 in January 2018, which also debuted at #1, and Culture 3 in 2021, cementing Migos as one of the most commercially dominant rap groups of the entire streaming era. Industry estimates place Migos among the highest-grossing touring rap acts of the late 2010s, with festival appearances, headlining tours, and arena dates generating serious revenue split between the group members their management, and their label partners. Now let me break down for y'all how Offset's individual money started stacking on top of all that. He released his debut solo studio album, Father of Four, in February 2019, which debuted in the top 5 of the Billboard 200 and included guest appearances from major artists. He pursued endorsement deals beyond music, including partnerships tied to fashion and lifestyle branding, common for artists at his visibility. Publishing income from his writing credits across Migos' catalog, plus feature verses on other artists' tracks, added even more income layers beyond touring and album sales. By the early 2020s, public wealth estimates from outlets that track celebrity finances put Offset's net worth in the range of tens of millions of dollars, with some estimates climbing as high as $50 million or more at various points. Factoring in real estate, music royalties, brand deals, and nearly a decade of accumulated earnings at the top of mainstream hip-hop. That's the foundation, fam. And now we're about to talk about how that foundation started cracking. Because the truth is, very few of these wealth estimates ever accounted for what it actually costs to live the lifestyle attached to that level of fame. Now this is where we got to address the lifestyle, because this is one of the biggest pieces of the whole puzzle. Offset's public spending habits over the years became a recurring subject of media coverage. Not because reporters were digging through his bank statements, because he showed the world himself. Custom jewelry has been a defining part of his public image for years, with custom-made pieces, diamond-encrusted chains, watches regularly showing up in music videos, red carpets, and social media posts. High-end jewelers who work with hip-hop artists have spoken publicly about the scale of custom commissions for artists at Migos level, often running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single piece. And Offset was known for commissioning multiple custom pieces over the years, rather than just one signature item. His car collection became a visible marker of wealth too, with luxury and exotic vehicles, including high-end Rolls-Royce models and customized cars, appearing in his content and at public events. And let's keep it real, these ain't vehicles that just cost money once. They come with ongoing insurance premiums, maintenance costs, and customization expenses that stack up year after year. Designer fashion was another consistent thread. As a public figure who attended award shows, fashion weeks, and high-profile events, Offset regularly wore custom and designer pieces from major fashion houses, and artists at this level often work directly with stylists and brands, which involves significant spending even when some pieces get gifted or sponsored. Private travel is a category fans dramatically underestimate too. Chartering private jets, standard for artists touring at Offset's level or attending events on tight schedules, can cost anywhere from $10,000 to over $25,000 per flight, depending on distance and aircraft type. For somebody living the touring and travel-heavy lifestyle across an entire year, that adds up to a staggering recurring expense that never shows up as one dramatic headline, but quietly eats into liquid wealth every single month. Real estate decisions added another layer too, with Offset and his family residing in upscale properties in the Atlanta area over the years. Properties that come with property taxes, security systems, staffing, and maintenance costs most fans never see reflected in a celebrity's public image. The flex culture embedded in hip-hop, where displaying wealth as part of the artistic brand itself, creates a particular kind of financial trap. And for y'all who might not understand this cultural element, let me explain it plain. Unlike a regular person who can quietly scale back spending without anyone noticing, a mainstream rap artist's image is often tied directly to the perception of success. Pulling back on jewelry, cars, or visible luxury can get read by fans and industry peers as a sign of decline, which creates pressure to keep spending even when it might not be financially smart. This dynamic has played out across the genre for decades, fam, and it's a major piece of the backdrop for understanding why Offset's financial picture got as complicated as it did. Now we move into one of the most consequential, most heavily reported developments in this whole story, the gambling chapter. And this, the part the internet really ran with. In 2024, reporting emerged detailing a lawsuit filed against Offset by Motor City Casino Hotel, a casino located in Detroit, Michigan. According to the reporting, the lawsuit centered on unpaid casino markers totaling more than $100,000. Now, for y'all unfamiliar with how this works, let me break it down. A casino marker is essentially a short-term, interest-free line of credit that casinos extend to high-value gamblers, allowing them to gamble with money advanced by the casino itself rather than cash on hand. The gambler signs an agreement promising to repay the marker, typically within a set window of time, and casinos extend these credit lines specifically to VIP level patrons because they want to keep high rollers playing without the friction of constantly hitting an ATM or carrying large amounts of cash. When a marker goes unpaid past its due date, it can escalate from a civil debt collection matter into something with criminal implications in some states, because unpaid markers are sometimes treated similarly to bad checks under certain state laws. Though the specific legal pathway depends heavily on jurisdiction and the terms of the agreement, the lawsuit against Offset reportedly sought repayment of the outstanding balance, and the filing reignited a much bigger public conversation about his spending habits, because it was one of the first pieces of hard legal documentation, not speculation, not rumor, but an actual court filing connecting his name directly to high-stakes gambling losses. Now hold up. Before y'all start thinking everything said about this online is confirmed fact, it's not. The lawsuit itself and the dollar figure tied to those unpaid markers came through legal filings and got covered by entertainment and hip-hop news outlets tracking the case. But alongside that reporting came a much bigger wave of online speculation about how deep Offset's gambling habits actually ran, much of it extending way past what was documented in court. Public personalities and commentators across podcasts and social media used that lawsuit as a launching pad to speculate about broader gambling problems and financial mismanagement. A speculation about the scope of a habit is different from the documented legal claim itself, which centered specifically on those Motor City casino markers. What we can say with confidence, real talk, is that high-stakes gambling, even short of full addiction, represents a unique financial risk for wealthy entertainers. Casino markers function as leverage. They let somebody gamble with borrowed money, so losses compound way faster than somebody gambling with cash already set aside. And when that debt becomes public through litigation, it becomes a reputational liability stacked right on top of the financial one. Let that sink in. From here, we move into a whole different kind of financial pressure, the business decisions tied to Offset's recording career and his catalog. One of the most significant moves Offset has talked about publicly involves regaining ownership and control over his own music. In interviews, he's discussed spending approximately $10 million pursuing greater ownership and career independence, a move that came in the broader context of shifts at Quality Control Music. In 2023, Quality Control sold a majority stake to HYBE, the South Korean conglomerate behind groups like BTS, in a deal reported to be valued around $300 million. That kind of corporate transaction raises questions for signed artists about who controls their masters, publishing, and long-term royalty streams. For an artist like Offset, who built a decade of his career around Migos and Quality Control, the thought of his life's work being controlled by a structure he didn't directly negotiate created strong incentive to fight for direct ownership. Even at a massive price, artists across the industry have made similar plays throughout history, buying back masters, renegotiating publishing splits, because owning your catalog means owning the royalty stream for life, whereas not owning it means watching somebody else profit indefinitely. Whether the full 10 million figure represents the final cost, the fact that Offset has spoken publicly about spending at that scale shows how expensive true independence can be, even for an artist who already achieved massive success. Now we arrive at, without question, the most publicly dissected chapter of Offset's whole life, his relationship with Cardi B. Let me break this down for y'all properly, because this is the part everybody's been waiting on. The two met in 2017, reportedly connecting around the same period both of their careers were exploding. Cardi B's Bodak Yellow had just become a cultural phenomenon, and Offset and Migos were riding the success of culture. Reports at the time placed their meeting around a Power 99 radio event in Philadelphia. The relationship moved fast by public standards. Offset proposed to Cardi B on stage at the Wireless Festival in London in October 2017, in front of thousands of fans, presenting her with an enormous diamond ring estimated at the time to be worth somewhere between $500,000 and over $1 million, depending on the outlet reporting it. It was later revealed the two had actually secretly married in September 2017, just weeks before that public proposal, meaning that elaborate stage moment was in essence a public celebration of a marriage that already happened privately. Their relationship became one of the most visible celebrity partnerships in hip-hop throughout the following years, marked by public displays of luxury and affection that mirrored the broader flex culture surrounding both their careers. They welcomed their daughter, Culture, in July 2018. The relationship wasn't without turbulence. Cardi B publicly announced a brief separation in late 2018, citing trust issues, before the couple reconciled. They later welcomed a son, Wave, in September 2021, and went on to have twins in 2024. Throughout their years together, Offset became known for elaborate public gestures, including surprising Cardi B with luxury cars for birthdays and holidays, an annual pattern fans specifically anticipated and tracked online, with vehicles ranging from custom Rolls Royces to other high-end models gifted across multiple years. These gestures weren't just personal expressions, fam. They became part of the public narrative of their relationship, amplifying the expectation that every milestone needed to be marked with increasingly extravagant displays. In various interviews over the years, including conversations on platforms covering hip-hop culture and relationships, Offset has discussed the financial scale of supporting the relationship and lifestyle he shared with Cardi B. At one point, referencing a figure around $12 million spent across the relationship when accounting for gifts, travel, lifestyle support, and family expenses. Now, this figure, by his own account, reflects not a single purchase, but an accumulation across years of birthdays, anniversaries, family needs, and the kind of sustained luxury lifestyle that high-profile celebrity couples are expected to maintain in the public eye. This is worth pausing on. Real talk, because it illustrates something critical about how celebrity marriages function financially at the highest level. When two of the most visible artists in an entire genre are together, there's an implicit pressure, fueled by fans, media coverage, and industry expectation, to continually demonstrate the relationship's success through visible spending. A normal couple facing financial strain can quietly adjust their lifestyle without public scrutiny. A couple like Offset and Cardi B face the opposite dynamic. Any visible scaling back could get read by millions of people as a sign of trouble in the relationship, which paradoxically increases the pressure to keep spending even during periods when it might not make financial sense. That pressure eventually gave way to the chapter most fans are already familiar with, the divorce. In September 2024, Cardi B filed for divorce from Offset, a filing that came after years of on and off public speculation about the state of their marriage. The divorce proceedings became a significant part of the celebrity news cycle, with reporting covering disputes over custody arrangements for their children, conversations about asset division, and the kind of contentious back and forth that often characterizes high net worth celebrity divorces. Discussions around spousal support, child support obligations, and how shared assets accumulated over roughly 7 years of marriage would be divided became part of the public conversation, with legal commentary noting that divorces involving high-earning entertainers often involve complex negotiations over royalty streams, future earnings, jointly purchased real estate, and luxury assets like vehicles and jewelry that were gifted or co-owned throughout the relationship. Regardless of the final settlement details, the divorce itself represents a major financial inflection point, because dividing years of accumulated lifestyle assets, potentially adjusting custody-related financial obligations, and navigating legal fees associated with a high-profile separation all represent real costs layered right on top of everything else, already straining Offset's finance. Adding to this pressure, there were previously reported developments regarding tax obligations. Public records and reporting in past years referenced a federal tax lien connected to Offset, reflecting unpaid tax obligations reported at over $1 million at one point. Now let me break this down plain for y'all, because it's not what some people think. A tax lien is not a criminal allegation. It's a legal claim the government places against somebody's property when taxes go unpaid, designed to make sure the debt gets settled, often complicating that person's ability to secure loans or sell certain assets until it's resolved. Tax liens against high-earning entertainers ain't as rare as fans might assume, precisely because of how complicated income reporting gets for somebody with multiple revenue streams. Touring income, royalties, endorsement deals, and irregular payment schedules can create situations where quarterly estimated tax payments fall behind, even for people earning enormous gross income, especially when that income isn't being managed with disciplined professional oversight. This brings us to a section that rarely gets discussed in mainstream coverage of celebrity wealth. The real kicker, though, is the sheer scale of overhead that comes attached to fame at this level. Financial advisors who specialize in working with high net worth entertainers have explained that someone at Offset's level typically maintains a team including personal security, a tour manager, a business manager, an entertainment lawyer, publicist. Security alone can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Management fees typically range between 15 and 20% of gross earnings. Touring itself, despite generating large gross revenue, comes with enormous production costs. Staging, lighting, sound, crew travel, hotels, transportation that can eat into 50% or more of ticket revenue before an artist even sees their share. Add federal and state income taxes, which for high earners can easily exceed 35 to 40% of gross income combined. And the gap between what a headline says somebody earned and what they actually keep becomes enormous. This leads directly into one of the most important concepts for understanding this whole story: the difference between gross earnings and retained wealth. When a headline says an artist generated $50 million across a career, that number almost always refers to gross revenue, total money that passed through various deals, tours, and royalty streams, not the amount that artists personally banked after taxes, management cuts, production costs, label splits, and living expenses. Financial experts who study athlete and entertainer wealth have repeatedly pointed out that it's entirely possible and disturbingly common for somebody to generate tens of millions of dollars in career earnings while retaining only a fraction of that amount in actual net worth, simply because of how many parties take a percentage before the money ever reaches the artist's personal account, combined with how much of what does reach them gets spent maintaining the very lifestyle that income was supposed to represent. So where does this leave Offset today? Publicly, he's continued releasing music independently, navigating his career outside the shadow of Migos following the tragic death of Takeoff in November 2022, and working to establish himself as a solo artist with his own creative and business direction. He's spoken in interviews about wanting greater control over his masters and his business decisions going forward, a theme that connects directly back to that $10 million catalog investment we talked about earlier. Future earning opportunities remain available to him through new music, potential touring, brand partnerships, and the kind of career longevity that established artists in hip-hop have shown is possible even after major personal and financial turbulence. The story ain't over, fam, and nothing about his current position suggests financial ruin in the way that phrase might imply for an average person. But the gap between perception and reality, between what fans assumed his net worth represented and what the underlying financial pressures actually look like, is exactly the gap this video been trying to illuminate. It's worth zooming out here, because Offset's situation is far from unique in the landscape of athlete and entertainer wealth. Multiple studies, including widely cited research on professional athletes, have found that a striking percentage face significant financial distress within just a few years of their peak earning period ending, often due to the exact same pattern across industries: lifestyle inflation that scales alongside income without anyone pulling the emergency brake, expensive business ventures entered into without proper diligence, divorce settlements that fracture accumulated wealth, and overhead structures that quietly consume gross income before it ever becomes net worth. Musicians face an added layer of complexity because, unlike athletes with fixed-length careers and predictable contract structures, musicians' income can be wildly unpredictable, tied to album cycles, touring windows, and shifting industry economics around streaming royalties that pay drastically less per stream than the old album sales model ever did. So when we ask the central question this video set out to answer, how does someone go from being talked about as a $50 million artist to facing headlines about unpaid casino debts, tax liens, and divorce-related financial pressure? The honest answer, real talk, is that it was never one single catastrophic decision. It wasn't the casino lawsuit alone, it wasn't the catalog buyback alone, it wasn't the divorce alone. It was the accumulation of thousands of individual choices, each one reasonable or even necessary in isolation, stacking on top of each other across nearly a decade. The jewelry, the cars, the private flights, the management percentages, the touring overhead, the tax obligations, the relationship spending, the catalog fight, the gambling losses, the legal fees, each one by itself looks like the kind of expense any successful celebrity might reasonably have. Together, compounding year after year without the kind of disciplined oversight that prevents lifestyle from outpacing even elite-level income, they become something far more dangerous. A slow erosion that doesn't announce itself with one dramatic headline until suddenly, all at once, it does. That's the real lesson sitting underneath this whole story, fam. And it extends way beyond Offset specific. Wealth at the celebrity level is rarely lost the way fans imagine, through one reckless purchase or one bad investment. It's lost the way water erodes stone, slowly, consistently through thousands of small decisions that each feel justified in the moment, until the foundation that once seemed unshakable simply isn't there anymore. Whether Offset's career enters a new chapter of financial stability remains to be seen. And given his continued presence in the industry and his stated focus on ownership and control, there's a real possibility this story still has new chapters being written. But the lesson sitting underneath everything we cover today is one that applies far beyond hip-hop, far beyond celebrity culture entirely. The gap between what you earn and what you keep is determined not by one decision, but by every decision, made consistently over years. What are your thoughts on Offset's situation and his future? Drop it in the comments and click on the video on screen for more stories just like this. 1.